Why is it important to dry plastic resin before processing it? Before we understand why we need to dry plastic resin, we must first know what plastic resin is and what is it used for. According to an article on marvelindustries.com, plastic resin is the main base of all plastics. If you think about it, the housing and components found in your vehicle's headlights are created from these tiny polymers. You dry plastic resin prior to processing it to ensure the maximum effectiveness of the resin during the processing stage, and also keep scrap to a minimum. Understanding why dry resin is important for producing plastic products can reduce complications in plastic mold injection. The process of drying plastic resin comes with its own benefits that include molten plastic with no air pockets, scrap reduction, low chances of semi-molded parts, and an increase in the production of quality parts during the processing stage, because everyone wants to maximize their profits. During my employment as material handler, I was responsible for the handling and drying of plastic resin. From my experience and knowledge that I have gained while working in that department, I can tell you that using dry resin versus undry resin have their effects. For example, using undry resin produced defective parts, which increased costs to the company's budget to get rid of these defective parts, which at the end of the year added up. As opposed to using dry resin, quality parts were produced and costs to export scrap decreased. It is important for one to understand the importance of using dry plastic resin, as it becomes costly if one is not properly informed. Some of the downfalls of not knowing why it is important to dry plastic resin prior to plasticizing would be improper training and unwanted results. The process of drying plastic resin deals with time and temperature. Knowing what temperature to dry at and for how long is key in the drying process. Sometimes, someone who is not properly trained can create a list of unwanted results. Results such as over-dried or under-dried resin. Once plastic resin has been over-dried, it is no longer useful and will need to be tossed out. The company will then have to spend more money to replace the wasted material, which could then take some time before a new batch arrives, resulting in loss of production. A company will also have to invest money and time to give proper training to the individual responsible for drying and handling the plastic resin. To recap, dry plastic resin is an important process in order to reduce complications in plastic mold injection. It does seem weird, but this process plays a big role in plastic mold injection, as its advantages outweigh its disadvantages. Some of the advantages discussed earlier of drying plastic resin include low chances of defective parts and a higher chance of quality parts being produced. This process has become a necessity in plastic mold injection and should be mandatory, as it becomes costly if one does not dry plastic resin.